crafty crew. Welcome back to our creative corner where imagination takes center stage. Today we'll dive headfirst into an exciting craft challenge that will put our skills to the test and spark a burst of artistic inspiration. Hi, my name is Katie from Lady Red Crafting, and let's get started. So we're going to start out today with this Valentine's Day sign that I had from last year. It was just some little hearts that spelled out the word welcome. And I'm removing 2 of these hearts and we're going to reuse them in our next 2 crafts. To remove the L and the E, I'm using some water and I'm just going to spray that lightly on top and just a little scraper to scrape everything off of these hearts. And you can totally skip this step if you have 2 plain hearts and you don't need to remove anything from them. I just like to use some of the items that I have on hand, so I'm not spending too much on my craft supplies. So while we're prepping our hearts, let's talk a little bit about the challenge I'm participating in this month, Just Our Imagination, hosted by Kathy Jo DIYs, Brenda from Rustic and Lace DIYs, and Lily D's Creations. This challenge requires us to use caulking, dowels, and twine and incorporate them into our crafts for this month. Every month, the challenge items are different, so please check out their links in the description box below and the playlist in the description box below and see what we made. So now back to our craft. So once these hearts are prepped and ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take that caulking and I'm just going to make some little swirls on one of the hearts. And then the next step is let this dry overnight. So the next day, once everything has dried completely, I'm using my Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster, and we're just going to do a nice coat of paint over the top of the heart and the caulking. Now, I find that I end up collecting a lot of craft supplies in my craft stash, and this was a little piece of canvas that I did not use from another project. So it's basically, I used the outside frame for something different, and this was the leftover canvas. And once I have that canvas taped down, I'm taking my caulking and I'm just going to do the same thing and put some fun swirls all over the top of the canvas and then let this sit overnight. Now let's prep a few beads. I'm taking a bamboo skewer and some clear tape and then adding our beads so that they don't slide around too much. And this will make it easier to paint them. A great technique when you're only painting a few beads and you want a nice thick layer of paint on them. For these beads, I'm going to paint them in the color Plaster by Waverly chalk paint. Now let's return back to our beautiful heart. I grabbed my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ink, and I'm taking a rounded brush and we're just going to dry brush around the caulking on the hearts and then around the edge of the heart. And I'm using my heat tool just to make sure everything is completely dry. And I'm then taking some plaster paint and I'm just going to fade in that black. Let's move back over to our canvas. I'm taking one of my dowels, and these dowels I did get at the Dollar Tree in a pack of 15. I'm going to trim the canvas up so that I have about 1/2 inch of dowel on either side of the canvas. So let's take all of the components we made and make our beautiful canvas. The first step is taking one of our 2 dowels and we're taking a little bit of hot glue and we're going to just set the top of the canvas on the top of the dowel, leaving about 1/2 inch on either side. And next, I'm going to flip this canvas over and we're just going to repeat that step, adding a little bit of hot glue and rolling it down. And I want to do this 3 times, maybe 4, just to make sure I have a nice secured canvas. Next, we're going to lay the canvas upside down on our green mat. And this will just help me align that second dowel so that it's even when we roll it down, so it's not lopsided. And now that our dowels are secure, let's take the beads and attach them to the ends of the dowel. Originally, I was going to attach them to the top and the bottom, but I decided that I liked it just being on the top of our little canvas. Now, using some hot glue, let's go ahead and attach our heart to the center of our canvas. And to incorporate our twine into our sign, let's add a twine bow to the top of our heart. Let's construct a hanger now for our canvas. I'm using some burlap ribbon, and this burlap ribbon I did get at the Dollar Tree, and it did wrinkle a little bit because of it being wrapped around that cardboard, so I just used a quick little iron and ironed out some of those wrinkles so it's a little bit flatter. Once I've done that, I go ahead and I divide it into 2 pieces, and we're going to use some hot glue and hot glue this to the back of our canvas. The last step here is we flip the canvas over and tie a little bow at the top so it makes it easy for us to hang this beautiful canvas. And I love how this canvas turned out. It's something you can use at Valentine's Day, but could use all year around. So for this next craft, we're going to use a heart from the Dollar Tree and some all-purpose caulking. For this caulking, we're just going to write out the word love on the front of this heart. Now this caulking does take a little while to dry. I waited overnight before I did anything else. Now using my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, we're going to go ahead and paint a nice coat of paint over the top of the caulking and the heart. Once that has completely dried, I could grab my ink colored Waverly chalk paint, and using just a dry brush, I'm going to go over the letters love. Then I'm going to lift this heart up and I just lightly brush around the outside layer of the heart. While that is drying, I went ahead and I taped down another heart, and this heart I did get at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to paint it in the color plaster as well. And this is one of those heart tags that you can usually get in the craft or square section. And I noticed that the white paint was not covering that white little lines around the heart very well. So what I did was just a little extra layer of paint just around the edge, and then just did a second coat over the top just to conserve some of my paint. Next, I grabbed a dry brush, and I'm going to dry brush a little bit of that black ink around the outside edge of the heart to give it more of a rustic look. Next, let's cover that hole on the heart. Using some hot glue and a cute little bow, we're just going to go ahead and hot glue a twine bow over the top. I wanted to give the bow a little more character, and I decided to add a little black button out of my button stash, and I just hot glued that right to the center of the bow, and I thought that gave it a nice finished look. For our next component, I'm going to grab a dowel from the Dollar Tree, and I'm using the black colored ink, and all I did was put a little bit of black ink onto my baby wipe, and I just wiped that down on the dowel. Now once that dowel has completely dried, we're going to go ahead and glue that to our little heart that we made. And I'm using just some hot glue and a clip to keep that in place. And once that has completely dried, I'll add a little bit more hot glue and a small piece of ribbon over the top of that just to make sure nothing moves. Now let's put our components together. I'm going to start out with some ribbon that I got at Walmart and a little wood palette that I found at the Dollar Tree. And we're just going to wrap that ribbon and hot glue a layer around this palette. And I wanted to take a quick moment to say thank you. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. I really appreciate each and every one of you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button below and be notified anytime I upload a new video. Now that our ribbon is attached, let's take some hot glue and attach our love heart to the center of that ribbon. Let's continue putting everything together. Using our love palette, I'm going to use a small wood box, and we're going to attach the wood box to the back side of the love palette. So I'm using some blue painter's tape to tape the palette to the box so that I have everything straight the way I'd like it for it to be attached. Let's remove the love palette from the box and the painter's tape. And we'll leave the painter's tape on the box so we can use that to secure our love palette back on. And I'm using hot glue and a little bit of wood glue to attach everything. With the blue painter's tape right where we want it to be, we could just lift that up and help it secure the love palette to the box. So I felt like the palette was missing just a little bit more flair, so I'm going to add a little bow to the top of this palette. Now we could leave this palette box just the way it is, but I thought we needed to add a little bit more to this box. So we're starting out with a eucalyptus pick from Walmart, and I'm just going to bend the bottom piece up and stick that in the back side of this box. Last step here is we'll take that heart that we put on the dowel and add that to our box in the back side. And this turns out so amazing. This will look wonderful on a desk or on a shelf. So this craft starts out with an unusual item, a hair roller from the Dollar Tree. And what I'm going to do here is I'm taking the little circle off of the top of the hair roller. And you can see that there's a metal rod in the hair roller, and that's what we're going to use for our craft. So what we're going to do with this metal rod is I'm going to fold it in the shape of a V, and then we're going to shape it into the shape of a heart. And using the two little hooks on this metal rod, we're going to hook them together. And once you're satisfied with your heart, I'm using a set of pliers and I'm just going to smush down those little hooks so that everything stays in place. So let's grab a spool of twine, and I'm using a 5-inch piece of twine, and I'm going to cut about 20 pieces. It'll just depend on how big your heart is on how many pieces you'll need. And to vary it up with the twine, I'm also going to use some macrame rope, and I'm going to cut those in 5-inch slices as well, and we'll need about 20 pieces of those for this heart. Now that we have all of our pieces ready, let's put this all together. I'm taking one of the pieces of twine to start, and I'm making a U shape. And then I'm going to place the heart over the top. And then we'll take the 2 strings on the end and put that through the U, slide that over the heart and tighten that up. Now let's watch that again using the macrame rope. Now this is the fun part. You just repeat this over and over again until the whole entire heart is completely covered with the different twines and macrame rope. Once you are satisfied with your heart, we'll flip the heart over and lay that out flat. Now grab a small bowl and some Mod Podge, and I'm using the matte Mod Podge because I don't want any shine to this little heart, and I'm just spraying a tiny bit of water in there. I'm not using very much, but I just wanted to thin out that Mod Podge a little bit. Now I'm taking a paintbrush and I'm just going to paint where the knots were on the front side of this heart. I need to set that aside to dry for about a half an hour. Once that is completely dried, what we're going to do is untwist all of the twine and the macrame rope around the heart. Now let's comb everything out so everything is nice and straight, and this will remove a lot of fuzz from your twine. Once you're satisfied with your combing, I take a pair of really sharp scissors, and I'm going to start by trimming around the outside edge, leaving about 1 inch of the overhang. And once I've completed that, I'll go ahead and trim it down a little bit more to about a ½ inch around the heart. So I wanted to find a way to hang this heart. So I'm taking a really thin piece of twine, and I'm going to tie a knot around the heart itself first, and then leave the 2 tails left out so that I could hang this however I'd like. You could tie those together to hang them as an ornament. I haven't decided yet where I'm going to hang this, so I left them open. Now a few final touches. In the center of the heart, I'm going to add a sheer bow, and I'm just hot gluing that to the center. And I thought that that bow needed just a tiny bit more, so I took that same thin twine and I cut another little bow. I'm going to attach that over the top of that sheer ribbon. And now this beautiful little heart is ready to hang. You could hang this on a tiered tray, on top of a photo, or you could put this as an ornament on a tree. And if you'd like to see more fun videos, please click on that recommended video in the top right-hand corner of your screen. And until next time, craft more, stress less.